One of the most surprising findings from recent intermittent fasting research is that time-restricted eating didn't improve glucose control when calories were matched. For many people, this is shocking because blood sugar management has been a major selling point for intermittent fasting. But this finding actually reveals something more important than just the limitations of meal timing. It shows us that blood sugar control is multifactorial and complex, and if you're serious about managing glucose levels, you need to think beyond just when you eat. Let's start with what actually controls your blood glucose. Yes, insulin sensitivity matters, and yes, meal timing can influence insulin response to some degree. But meal composition might matter more than timing. The type of carbohydrates you consume, whether they're refined or whole, how much fiber accompanies them, these factors dramatically affect glucose response. Two people eating the same amount of carbohydrates at the same time can have wildly different blood sugar spikes, depending on whether they're eating white bread or lentils. Food sequencing is another factor that's gained attention from continuous glucose monitoring studies. Eating vegetables before carbohydrates can significantly blunt the glucose spike from a meal. The fiber and nutrients from vegetables slow gastric emptying and carbohydrate absorption. Some research suggests that eating protein before carbs has similar benefits. This means the order of foods on your plate might matter as much or more than the timing of your overall eating window. Yet food sequencing gets much less attention than trendy fasting protocols. Physical activity has enormous effects on glucose control that often eclipse meal timing effects. Muscle contraction increases glucose uptake independent of insulin. A simple walk after meals can significantly reduce post-meal glucose spikes. Strength training improves insulin sensitivity for days afterward by increasing muscle mass and improving cellular glucose transporters. If you're doing intermittent fasting but remaining sedentary, you're missing possibly the most powerful tool for glucose management. Sleep quality is another crucial variable. Even one night of poor sleep impairs insulin sensitivity and glucose tolerance the next day. Chronic sleep deprivation creates a prediabetic metabolic state regardless of your eating window. If you're fasting but sleeping 5 hours a night, your blood sugar control is probably suffering despite the fasting. This is where we see how interconnected these metabolic factors are. You can't optimize one variable while neglecting others and expect good results. Stress and cortisol play huge roles too. Chronic stress raises cortisol, which increases blood glucose and impairs insulin sensitivity. Psychological stress from overly restrictive eating patterns can actually worsen glucose control, even if the dietary pattern theoretically should help. This creates a problematic situation where the stress of trying to perfectly execute an intermittent fasting protocol negates any metabolic benefit the protocol might provide. What about resistant starch and other specific foods that affect glucose metabolism? Foods containing resistant starch, certain types of vinegar, cinnamon in meaningful amounts, these have evidence for modest glucose-lowering effects. The gut microbiome influences glucose metabolism too. Fermented foods, prebiotics, dietary fiber, these shape your microbial community in ways that affect how you process carbohydrates. None of this has anything to do with meal timing. Here's what the isocaloric intermittent fasting studies are really telling us. If you don't change what you eat, how much you eat, or any of these other crucial factors, just changing when you eat has limited impact on blood glucose. This doesn't mean meal timing is irrelevant, but it does mean timing alone isn't sufficient. The people who see dramatic blood sugar improvements from intermittent fasting are probably experiencing multiple simultaneous changes. They're eating fewer calories, they're often eating less frequently, which means fewer glucose spikes throughout the day. They might be choosing different foods, and they might be making other health improvements at the same time. If glucose control is your primary goal, here's a more comprehensive approach. Focus on low glycemic foods and adequate fiber. Practice food sequencing with vegetables first. Incorporate post-meal movement even if it's just a 10-minute walk. Prioritize sleep quantity and quality. Manage stress through whatever methods work for you, and consider whether meal timing consistency matters more for you than restriction. You might find that eating 3 well-composed meals at consistent times with adequate spacing provides better glucose control than trying to compress everything into a narrow eating window while ignoring these other factors. Blood sugar management requires a holistic approach, not a single variable intervention. The disappointing glucose results from some intermittent fasting studies are actually teaching us this important lesson.